In ancient civilization, China has been growing for thousands and thousands of years. From the Xia dynasty in 2100 BC to modern-day communist China, the immense country has moved in leaps and bounds in terms of its economy. First, in order to fully understand the struggles China still has to overcome despite its great progress, we need to understand how different the Asian country is from our own. China boasts the largest population in the world with about 1.3 billion people in comparison to the U.S. population of about 330 million citizens. Perhaps boasts is the wrong word to use because population controls have been enacted throughout the country to ensure that China doesn't grow too large. Families with more than one child are subject to more taxes and in some cases even imprisoned. According to the UK Telegraph, the one-child policy began in 1978 when many economic reforms began and has continued ever since. It also states, the policy does not apply to everyone. In the countryside, parents are allowed to try for a second child if their first is a girl. Couples who are both single children themselves are also allowed to have 2 children. A growing number of rich Chinese also pay fines in order to have a second child. But for parents who do not comply with the law, the penalties can be harsh. Workers in state-owned companies can lose their jobs. Others face huge fines, the possible demolition of their homes, or even a prison term. For a country that has grown so much, China is still very much stuck in the past in some ways. Speaking of growing, China's GDP has reached $8.8 trillion in comparison to the U.S. with about $14 trillion. China's GDP is growing rapidly, and by 2020 it's expected to quadruple. Additionally, the inequality rate is very high. Boys are still favored in the communist nation, and the male literacy rate is 95.7% compared to the female literacy rate, which is only 87.6%. China has created a huge surplus as well, meaning that its exports are greater than its imports. As you can imagine, China's largest export partner is the U.S., followed by Hong Kong and Japan. China exports $1.47 trillion worth of goods, of which the U.S. receives $337.8 billion in predominantly apparel, footwear, and computer parts. In reverse, the U.S. exports $1.38 trillion, of which China receives $71.4 billion. Much of China's production is done in factories with questionable labor practices. Factories are at times unsafe working environments, and child labor is often used, despite laws to prohibit such actions. Although these practices seem unfair, the other side of the argument shows that Chinese workers make more money than typical annual income by working in factories despite the low wages. With the immense increase China has seen in production come serious environmental issues. In 2007, China surpassed the U.S. as the world's top emitter of carbon dioxide. An industrial economy, China has to consider global warming. Its emissions not only affect Chinese citizens, but also people across the globe. According to the European Union, only 1% of the country's 560 million citizens living in urban areas are considered to breathe clean air. Additionally, according to the Journal of Geophysical Research, much of the particulate pollution over Los Angeles in the United States originates in China. If China's growth continues at this high speed, measures will surely need to be taken to ensure the health of Chinese citizens as well as the rest of the world.